My name is Claire, I'm 36, and for the past 2 years, my life has been a balancing act. I'm a single mother to my amazing 11-year-old twins, Leo and Mia. After my marriage to my ex-husband Daniel ended, my parents offered us a lifeline, and we moved into their home. At the time, it felt like a port in a storm. Juggling 12-hour shifts as a pediatric nurse left me with little choice. I needed support, and my parents were there to provide it. Our relationship has always been layered, let's say, but I was determined to make it work for my children's sake. Then my brother, Mark, and his wife, Jessica, had their son, and just like that, my own children seemed to vanish from my parents' world. I never thought my own mother and father could make us feel so invisible. If you're finding yourself in this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tales of real-life drama. When Daniel and I separated after a dozen years together, the ground fell out from under me. It wasn't just the emotional devastation, the financial reality was brutal. We had built our lives on his salary as a corporate lawyer, while I worked a more flexible schedule as a nurse to be present for the twins. The divorce settlement gave me shared custody, a pittance in alimony, and the urgent need to work full-time just to keep us afloat. My parents, Helen and George, proposed we move in with them. "Just until you get back on your feet, sweetheart," my dad had said, his hand on my shoulder a rare gesture of comfort. I was profoundly grateful, even with the weight of our complicated past. Growing up, I was the dependable one, the daughter who meticulously followed the rules and exceeded every expectation. My younger brother Mark was the family's shining star, the golden child who could do no wrong. I had put myself through 8 demanding years of nursing school, specializing in pediatrics because of my deep love for working with children. My career wasn't glamorous, but it was honorable and steady. Mark, by contrast, had dropped out of his business degree program, only to have my parents fund a risky tech startup that, against all odds, became wildly successful. Now, at 33, he was earning a high 6-figure income. This pattern of favoritism was a current that had run through my entire life, so familiar that I had learned to swim in it without really noticing the pull. Leo and Mia were incredible kids, each a universe of their own. Leo was my sensitive artist, always lost in a world of sketches and Lego creations, his gentle soul sometimes making the rough and tumble of life a little hard for him. Mia was my little firebrand, a natural athlete with a fierce sense of justice, always the first to speak up against unfairness. They were resilient, managing to do well in school despite the chaos of the divorce and our move. Initially, our living arrangement with my parents was a success. They helped me turn their dusty home office into a cozy bedroom for the twins, and I settled into the small guest room. I paid my share of the groceries, took over most of the cooking, and drilled into the kids the importance of being respectful of their grandparents' home. My long shifts at the children's hospital, often stretching overnight, meant my parents' help with school runs was indispensable. My plan was to save every spare dollar for a security deposit and the first month's rent on our own place. I was aiming to be out within a year. I was a hawk with my finances, picking up extra shifts whenever I could, watching my savings account slowly grow. The rental market in our city was notoriously unforgiving, but I was fueled by the dream of giving my children a stable home again. Then Mark and Jessica welcomed their baby, little Noah, and the entire axis of our family life tilted. My parents had always doted on Mark, but their reaction to his firstborn was on another level entirely. They insisted on converting their formal dining room, a room used twice a year, into a lavish nursery, despite the fact that Mark and Jessica lived in a sprawling 4-bedroom house just a 15-minute drive away. They splurged on top-of-the-line baby gear that would only be used during their visits. My mother began flaking on her commitments to help with my kids if Mark so much as hinted he needed a hand. "Your brother needs us more right now," she'd explain, a note of finality in her voice. "He's a new father." The fact that I had been a single parent to 2 children for years seemed to be a detail she conveniently forgot. At first, I tried to be generous about it. A new baby, their first grandson, was understandably exciting. Leo and Mia had been the only grandchildren for over a decade. Maybe they were just captivated by the novelty. I coached my kids to be patient, to be kind, reminding them that baby Noah needed more attention because he was so tiny. The bias started in small ways. Christmas presents for Noah that were conspicuously more lavish than what my children received. Endless comments about how Noah was the spitting image of Mark as a baby, while my children were always said to take after their father, not me. They were small slights, but they piled up like stones on my chest. I fought back by carving out sacred time for just the 3 of us. We had picnics in the park on my days off and movie marathons huddled together in my small bedroom. I taped a savings chart to my mirror, a colorful thermometer that the kids could see creeping towards our goal. "Just a few more months," I'd promised them, tracing the line with my finger. "We'll have our own place by the holidays." But as the seasons changed, so did the atmosphere in the house. It grew thick with unspoken resentment. My parents' critiques of my parenting became more frequent and sharp. From the snacks I packed for the twins' lunches to their bedtime, to the amount of screen time they were permitted. In contrast, Mark and Jessica were parenting perfection personified, even when they'd show up 2 hours late for a family dinner or cancel long-standing plans with a last-minute text. I felt like I was walking on a wire, trying to shield Leo and Mia from the hurtful truth that their grandparents were playing favorites, while simultaneously trying not to rock the boat. I was dependent on my parents' help. I couldn't afford professional childcare on top of trying to save for our escape. By the end of summer, my savings account was looking healthy. I'd done the math 100 times. By November, I would have enough for a modest 2-bedroom apartment. 3 more months, that's all. I repeated it to myself like a mantra. 3 more months of biting my tongue. 3 more months of reminding my kids that we were guests. 3 more months of watching my parents lavish affection on Noah while my own children's achievements went unnoticed. I had no idea how much deeper the wound would get before those 3 months were up. The situation imploded one evening in September. Mark called a family meeting, a phrase that always sent a chill down my spine. He and Jessica sat at the kitchen table, baby Noah perched on Jessica's lap in an organic cotton onesie that probably cost more than my weekly food budget. "We've got some exciting news," Mark announced, his gaze fixed on our parents, completely bypassing me. "We're finally moving forward with the extension on our house, the big one we've been planning for years." My mother clasped her hands in delight. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey." "The thing is," Jessica chimed in, gently bouncing Noah, "we'll need a place to stay while the construction is happening. It should only take about 6 to 8 weeks. Before the words were even fully out of her mouth, before I could even begin to formulate a response, my father was nodding eagerly. "You'll stay here, of course. We have plenty of room." I cleared my throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the suddenly quiet room. "Actually, Dad, we're already pretty cramped with the 5 of us here." I gestured vaguely towards myself, the twins, and my parents. My mother's eyes flashed with irritation. "Claire, family helps family. It's only temporary." And just like that, it was decided. No one asked for my opinion. No one wondered how this would impact Leo and Mia. No one seemed to recall that I had been told the exact same thing about my temporary stay, which was now creeping up on its 2-year anniversary. Mark and Jessica moved in the following weekend. My father spent an entire afternoon helping Mark assemble a high-end portable crib in their room for Noah, though he'd never offered to so much as tighten a screw on the twins' beds when we first arrived. My mother cleared out an entire closet in the hallway for Jessica's clothes, while my own things had lived in suitcases for months before I finally bought a small, cheap dresser for myself. The shift in the household was immediate and jarring. Suddenly, Leo and Mia were being told to whisper all day because Noah is napping. Their toys, which had been neatly confined to their bedroom and one small corner of the living room, were now deemed clutter and constantly being swept into boxes and hidden away. The television, which they were allowed to watch for an hour after school, was now perpetually tuned to whatever reality show Jessica was binge-watching. One evening, I came home from an exhausting shift to find Mia sitting alone on the back steps, her shoulders slumped. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "Grandma said I was being too loud jumping rope in the yard," she mumbled, her lip trembling. But Noah wasn't even asleep. He was in the living room with Aunt Jessica. She just didn't want to hear me counting. That same week, Leo came bursting through the door, his face alight with excitement about an art project. He'd been chosen to represent his entire grade in a district-wide art exhibition. He ran to show my mother his award certificate, but she just waved a dismissive hand. "Not right now, Leo." I'm helping Jessica pick out tile samples for their new bathroom. I watched the light go out of my son's eyes, and a cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. That night, after the kids were in bed, I attempted a calm, rational conversation with my parents. "I understand that Mark and his family need support right now," I began, choosing my words with extreme care. "But I'm worried about how Leo and Mia are being treated. They feel like they don't matter anymore." My father just frowned. "They're being overly sensitive. Children need to learn that babies require more attention." "Noah isn't even here for most of the day," I pointed out, my voice rising slightly. "Mark drops him at daycare on his way to work, and Jessica picks him up on her way home. Leo and Mia aren't asking for attention during those hours." My mother sighed, a theatrical display of martyrdom. "You were always so jealous of your brother, Claire. I really thought you would have outgrown that by now." I was so stunned I couldn't speak. Was that truly how they saw me? Not as a mother advocating for her children, but as a petulant, jealous sibling? The microaggressions continued to pile up. Jessica began rearranging the kitchen to her liking, complaining about the healthy, affordable snacks I bought for the twins, and leaving loads of her laundry sitting in the washing machine for days on end. Mark treated the house like his own personal clubhouse, inviting his friends over for loud sports games without ever checking if the living room was already in use. One evening, I overheard him talking to my father. "We might need to push the renovation timeline," Mark said casually. "The contractor found some structural issues." "Stay as long as you need, son," my father replied instantly. "This is your home, too." I thought about how I had never once been told this was my home. Instead, I was constantly subtly reminded that my presence was conditional, a temporary charity case. The breaking point arrived during a Sunday dinner in early October. My mother had gone all out, preparing a feast of Mark's favorite rich, heavy foods, none of which my kids particularly liked. When Leo politely asked if he could just have a plain piece of chicken, my mother snapped at him for being ungrateful. "When I was a child, We ate what was put in front of us, and we were happy to have it, she said, her voice sharp. A few minutes later, Noah, sitting in his high chair, gleefully flung his entire bowl of pureed sweet potatoes onto the floor. The adults all chuckled indulgently. "He's just exploring textures," Jessica cooed, not making a single move to clean up the orange mess splattered across the floor and wall. The hypocrisy was so staggering, so blatant, that even my diplomatic son couldn't ignore it. He leaned over and whispered to me, "How come Noah can throw food, but I can't even ask for a different kind?" I had no good answer for him. A few days later, I noticed that all of Leo and Mia's colorful drawings and school awards had been removed from the refrigerator door. In their place was a laminated printout of Noah's daycare schedule and a half-dozen professional photos of him. When I asked about it, Jessica breezily replied that she needed the schedule front and center and figured no one would mind if she tidied up the fridge. My kids began to retreat. They stopped spending time in the common areas of the house, holing up in their small, shared bedroom, the only space that was truly theirs. I started taking them to the public library after school on my days off, just to give them a refuge where they weren't constantly being corrected or ignored. A colleague at work noticed the strain I was under during a particularly brutal shift. "Everything okay at home, Claire?" Sarah asked gently as we charted our patience. I found myself just letting it all spill out, the favoritism, the move-in, the basement. Sarah listened with a sympathetic ear, then said something that hit me like a physical blow. "It sounds like your parents have created a system where your brother's family are the guests of honor, and you and your kids are just inconvenient tenants." She was right. Hearing it stated so plainly by an outsider stripped away all my excuses and rationalizations. The dynamic wasn't just difficult, it was toxic. That evening, instead of driving straight home, I pulled into a quiet park and called a realtor friend I hadn't spoken to in years. "I need to get my kids out of there," I told her, my voice shaking with a newfound resolve. "Sooner, not later." By mid-October, the home environment had become unbearable. Mark and Jessica's 6 to 8 week stay had been vaguely extended indefinitely, with Mark citing mysterious complications with the renovation. I came home one afternoon to find a massive box in the recycling bin for a designer high chair, the kind that cost nearly $500. My parents had bought it for Noah. This was just a week after they had grumbled about the cost of Mia's new allergy medication, which our insurance only partially covered. "We want Noah to be comfortable when he eats here," my mother explained defensively when I questioned the purchase. "Mia needs to breathe," I shot back, the anger in my voice sharp and cold. My mother just stared at me as if I were being hysterical. "George and I are on a fixed income, Claire. We can't pay for everything for your children." The fact that I paid for every single one of my children's expenses, on top of contributing to the household bills, seemed to have completely escaped her memory, as did the fact that Mark and Jessica, with their combined massive income, contributed absolutely nothing. The next blow came when Mia was practicing her clarinet for the school band. She'd been playing for less than 15 minutes in her room with the door closed when Jessica barged in without knocking. "Can you not do that right now? Noah is trying to nap, and I have an important work call in 10 minutes. Mia, mortified, immediately put her instrument away. She later confessed to me in tears that she had been in a scheduled virtual practice session with her band teacher. She'd missed it and was now terrified she'd be unprepared for her upcoming chair placement audition. I tried to reason with Jessica, suggesting we create a schedule that worked for everyone. "My work calls and Noah's naps have to be the priority," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Mia can practice her little hobby some other time." I had to physically bite my tongue to stop myself from screaming. Mia's little hobby was her passion, something her teacher said she had a real gift for. But in this house, my children's passions were worthless compared to the slightest whim of Mark's family. Leo was fading before my eyes. His teacher emailed, expressing concern about his withdrawal in class and a noticeable drop in his grades. My once bubbly, engaged son had become quiet and perpetually anxious. When I finally got him to open up, he admitted he was afraid to sleep because he was so worried about doing something wrong and getting in trouble. "Grandma and Grandpa get mad at us for everything," he whispered, his eyes wide with fear. "But they never, ever get mad at Uncle Mark or Aunt Jessica or Noah." I started picking up every extra shift I could at the hospital, partly for the money and partly just to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the house. My parents, of course, interpreted this as me shirking my family duties, while Mark and Jessica seemed relieved to have me out of their way. The whole thing detonated during a family dinner in late October. My parents had invited several extended family members, including my Aunt Carol, who had always shown a special kindness towards me and my kids. Throughout the meal, my mother held court with a long, gushing monologue about what a prodigy Noah was. "He's already trying to pull himself up to Stan," she bragged. "Mark was an early walker too. Some families just have that natural athleticism." She then turned her gaze on Leo and added with a dismissive wave of her hand, "It's a shame you didn't inherit that from your father's side. Daniel was always so athletic, wasn't he?" I saw Leo physically shrink in his chair, his face crumbling before he managed to smooth it into a mask of indifference. The message was unmistakable. Any positive traits in my children were aberrations from their father's side, while Noah's gifts were a direct inheritance from the superior family line. Across the table, Aunt Carol's eyes met mine, and her expression was one of deep concern. After the plates were cleared, she pulled me into the hallway. "How long has it been this bad?" she asked in a low voice. "It's always been there, under the surface," I admitted, my voice thick with unshed tears. "But it's become unbearable since Mark's family moved in." "This isn't healthy for those children, Claire," she said, her voice firm, echoing the words of my friend Sarah. "They deserve to be cherished, not treated like second-class citizens in their own family." I nodded, a tear finally escaping and tracing a hot path down my cheek. "I'm working on it," I whispered. "I have a plan." And I did. For weeks I had been meeting with my realtor friend on my lunch breaks. We'd toured several rental properties, and I had found a small 3-bedroom house just 10 minutes from the hospital in the same school district. The rent was at the very top of my budget, but my steady employment and pristine credit score had gotten me approved. I had signed the lease the previous week, a secret I held close to my chest, not even telling Leo and Mia. I couldn't bear to get their hopes up until every single detail was locked down. The house would be ready for move-in on November 1st, just 1 week away. I had already secretly arranged for a few essential pieces of furniture to be delivered on that day and had set up the utilities in my name. My aunt squeezed my hand, her touch grounding me. "You let me know if you need anything at all. I've been worried about you." Her validation was a lifeline. I had started to doubt my own sanity, to wonder if my parents were right, if I was just being jealous and oversensitive. Her confirmation that the situation was as toxic as I felt it was solidified my resolve. The very next morning, I overheard Mark and my father talking in the kitchen. "The contractor says it could easily be another 3 months," Mark was saying. "And honestly, with the baby, it might just be easier to stay put through the holidays." "You know you're always welcome here, son," my father replied, his voice warm with affection. This is your home. The blatant double standard was suffocating. That evening, I took the twins out for ice cream, a rare weeknight treat. I needed to get them away from the house, to breathe clean air. I need you both to listen to me very carefully, I said as they dug into their cones. No matter what anyone says or does in that house, you two are the most wonderful, valuable, incredible people. The way they are treating you has nothing to do with you. It's not your fault. Mia, my perceptive girl, studied my face intently. Are we going to move out soon, Mom? She asked. Her insight startled me. What makes you say that? You've been working so much, she said, and you seem different, not as sad, more determined. My little girl saw the shift in me before I had even fully named it myself. Just hang in there for me for a little bit longer, I told them, a promise in my eyes. Can you do that? They both nodded, and for the first time in months, I saw a flicker of genuine hope in their expressions. When we got back, Jessica was complaining loudly that the twins' backpacks were cluttering the entryway, despite the fact that Noah's stroller, diaper bag, and an assortment of his toys were strewn across the living room floor. Children need to learn to be tidy, she lectured me, as if I were a clueless teenager and she the seasoned parenting guru. I just smiled a tight, brittle smile and helped the kids move their bags, repeating my mantra in my head. Just a few more days, just a few more days. I had no idea that the situation was about to detonate, forcing my hand and changing our lives forever. The following Tuesday, I was in the middle of a brutal 12-hour shift. The pediatric ward was chaotic, with 3 new emergency admissions and a staffing shortage that had me running ragged. I'd barely had a moment to breathe, let alone check my phone. When I finally slipped into the break room for 5 minutes, I saw a cascade of missed texts from both Leo and Mia. From Leo. Mom, something really weird is happening. Grandpa and Uncle Mark are moving our beds and stuff. From Mia. Grandma says we have to move our room to the basement. She said Noah needs our room. This isn't fair. From Leo. Mom, please call. They took all our things downstairs. From Mia. I hate it here. The basement is cold and it smells gross and there are spiders. My blood ran cold. My heart started hammering against my ribs as I frantically dialed the house phone. No answer. I tried both of the kids' phones, straight to voicemail. My fingers trembled as I texted Mia back. I will be home as soon as I possibly can. Stay calm. I love you both so much. I found my charge nurse, my voice shaking as I explained I had a family emergency. She was incredible, immediately arranging for another nurse to cover the last 4 hours of my shift. Still, it took me nearly an hour to properly hand off my patient load and finish critical charting before I could race out the door. The 20-minute drive home felt like an eternity. My mind was a whirlwind of rage and disbelief. The basement. They had actually moved my children into the damp, unfinished, poorly insulated basement that sometimes got water seepage during heavy rains. When I screeched into the driveway, I forced myself to take a deep, steadying breath. I needed to be calm. I needed to see the situation clearly before I reacted. The scene inside the house was even worse than I'd imagined. Leo and Mia were huddled together on the living room sofa, their faces pale and streaked with tears. My mother and Jessica were in the kitchen, casually sipping tea as if it were any other Tuesday afternoon. Mark and my father were nowhere in sight. "What is going on?" I asked, my voice dangerously low, as I went straight to my children and wrapped my arms around them. Mia burst into fresh sobs, clinging to me. "They moved all our stuff to the basement, Mom. They didn't even ask. They said we don't deserve the good rooms anymore." Leo nodded, his face a mask of misery. "Grandpa said Uncle Mark's family needs more space because they're more important right now." I hugged them tighter, a white-hot fury building inside me, but I kept my voice even for their sake. Let me go talk to Grandma. In the kitchen, my mother didn't even bother to look up. You're home early, she remarked. Why are my children's belongings in the basement? I demanded. Jessica took a delicate sip of her tea. We needed to make some adjustments. Mark and I need a proper nursery for Noah, plus a dedicated space for my home office now that I'm working remotely full-time. So you decided, without consulting me, to move my children into an unfinished basement? My mother finally met my gaze, her own eyes hard. It was the logical solution, Claire. The children are older. They can adapt. A baby can't. Besides, our other grandson deserves the best rooms. He's here all day, while your children are at school. The casual cruelty, the deliberate use of other grandson, stole the air from my lungs. My children deserve a safe, comfortable place to sleep, just as much as Noah does. Don't be so melodramatic, my mother scoffed. The basement is perfectly fine. We put their beds down there and everything. The basement has visible mold in one corner. It gets freezing cold at night, and the ceiling is exposed insulation, I shot back. Not to mention, the one tiny window doesn't even open properly. It's a fire hazard. They'll be fine, my mother insisted. Family means making sacrifices. It was clear that in her world, family only meant that my children were expected to make all the sacrifices. Just then, my father and Mark walked in through the back door, looking pleased with themselves. Oh, good, you're home, my father said cheerfully. We've made some changes that will work much better for everyone. Yes, I see that, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. You moved my children to the basement without my permission. Mark had the audacity to shrug. We needed the space upstairs. Noah's getting mobile and needs a proper play area. Plus, Jessica needs a quiet room for her calls. And my children, I countered, my voice rising, need a safe, habitable bedroom. The basement is fine, my father said dismissively. I laid down some old carpet scraps. They should be grateful they have a roof over their heads at all. I stared at him, and it was like seeing him clearly for the very first time. This man who had raised me, whose approval I had spent a lifetime chasing, had just told me in no uncertain terms how little he valued my children. Leo has asthma, I reminded them, my voice ice. The dampness and mold could trigger a serious attack. You're overreacting, as usual, Mark said, actually rolling his eyes. Kids are tough. Jessica and I grew up in way worse conditions. Jessica nodded sagely, though I knew for a fact she'd grown up in a mansion in the wealthiest suburb in the state. I looked at the four of them. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister-in-law. Not one of them showed a flicker of shame or regret. To them, this was a perfectly reasonable, logical decision. The golden child and his family got the best. My children got the scraps. I walked back into the living room where Leo and Mia were waiting, their eyes fixed on me with a desperate hope that I would fix this. And in that instant, something inside me shifted. A profound, calm certainty settled over me. I knelt in front of them, and a genuine smile spread across my face. I looked into their tear-stained faces and said the three words that would change everything. Pack your bags. They stared at me, confused. I just nodded, my smile widening. Trust me. Pack up everything that is most important to you. We'll come back for the rest. My father had followed me into the room. Oh, for heaven's sake, Claire, stop being so theatrical. No one is asking you to leave. I turned to face him, my smile never wavering. No, Dad. You're not asking. You just made it crystal clear where my children and I stand in this family, and we deserve better. What are you talking about? He sputtered. as Leo and Mia's eyes darted between us. "Go on, kids," I said gently. "Go pack your backpacks with your most important things. We'll get the rest of our stuff tomorrow." As they scurried upstairs, a spark of life returning to their faces, my mother stormed into the room. "What is this nonsense? You can't just walk out because you didn't get your way." Mark and Jessica trailed in behind her, Noah perched on Mark's hip. The whole welcoming committee was here for the final act. "This isn't about not getting my way," I said, my voice calm and steady. "This is about a fundamental lack of respect and human decency, which has been in very short supply in this house." "We've given you a roof over your head for 2 years," my father thundered. "How dare you speak of disrespect?" "Yes, you have," I acknowledged, "and I have paid my way. I've contributed financially, done the lion's share of the cooking and cleaning, and ensured my children were nothing but respectful of you and your home. But today, you didn't just cross a line. You obliterated it," Jessica scoffed. "It was just a room swap. You are being ridiculously sensitive." I turned my full attention to her. "Is that what you would call it if I moved your child into a damp, moldy basement without your permission?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no answer. "The basement is perfectly adequate," my mother insisted. "We raised you and Mark without all these coddling special accommodations kids seem to need today." "The basement has mold," I repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child. "Leo has asthma. It is cold, damp, and has inadequate fire exits. It is not a legal bedroom, period." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Those building codes are just government overreach." I almost laughed. Safety regulations were government overreach when they were inconvenient for him. "And where exactly do you think you're going to go?" Mark asked with a smug smirk. "It's not like you have much saved up with your spending habits." And there it was, the core of their delusion. They saw me as weak, incompetent, and financially dependent, despite all evidence to the contrary. They truly believed I was trapped. "That's where you're wrong," I said softly. "I've been saving every penny since the day I moved in. I've been working overtime for 2 years, and 3 weeks ago, I signed a lease on a house not 10 minutes from here." The stunned, absolute silence in the room was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. My mother was the first to recover. "You were planning this? To leave without even telling us?" she asked, her voice trembling with manufactured hurt. "I was planning on giving you professional, respectful notice next week," I clarified. "The house isn't officially available until November 1st. But today's little stunt has moved up my departure date." "You can't be serious," Mark stammered. "Where will you stay until then?" "That," I replied, "is no longer any of your concern." In reality, I had already called my friend Sarah from the car, and she had insisted we come straight to her place. My father's face was turning a blotchy, alarming shade of red. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By sneaking around behind our backs and then throwing a tantrum over a minor issue?" "A minor issue?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You unilaterally moved my children into an unsafe space. You told them to their faces that their cousin is more deserving of comfort and safety than they are. That is not minor, Dad. That is a declaration of their worth in your eyes." Leo and Mia reappeared at the bottom of the stairs, each with a backpack and a duffel bag. Mia was clutching her clarinet case like a lifeline, and Leo had his sketchbook and the worn stuffed dragon he'd slept with since he was a toddler. "We're ready, Mom," Mia said, her voice surprisingly strong. "This is insane," my mother declared. "You are not actually leaving right now." "We are," I confirmed. We'll be back tomorrow with a moving truck for the rest of our things when you've all had a chance to calm down. If you walk out that door, Claire, don't expect us to welcome you back," my father threatened. I looked at him, a wave of profound sadness washing over my anger. "Dad, I stopped expecting a welcome from you a very, very long time ago." Mark stepped forward, a flicker of panic in his eyes as he finally realized this was real. "Come on, Claire, let's just talk about this. Don't make a scene in front of the kids." "The scene was already made," I replied coldly. "My children have been shown their place in this family's hierarchy. There's nothing left to discuss." I ushered Leo and Mia out the door, and as I loaded their bags into the car, my family stood on the porch, a silent tableau of disbelief and fury. They had been so certain of their power, so confident in my dependency, that they simply could not compute this reality. As I started the engine, my mother ran to my window, her face crumpled. "Claire, please, you're overreacting. Come back inside and we can work something out." "We'll talk tomorrow," I said firmly, "when I come for our furniture." "But where will you go tonight?" she cried, a sliver of genuine fear finally piercing her indignation. I looked her straight in the eye. "Somewhere my children are considered a priority," I said, and I drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Leo and Mia looking back at the house, and I realized they weren't looking with sadness. They were looking with relief. "Are we really getting our own house, Mom?" Leo asked, his voice a hopeful whisper. "Almost," I told him, reaching back to squeeze his knee. "We have a house waiting for us, but for the next few days, we're going to have a slumber party at my friend Sarah's house." "Is it because of what Grandma and Grandpa did?" Mia asked. I chose my words with care. "It's because we all deserve to live in a place where we are treated with kindness and respect. I've been planning for us to move for a while, but yes, what they did today showed me we needed to leave right away." "I didn't like how they talked about us," Leo said softly from the back seat, like we were just in the way. My heart ached. "You are both the most important thing in the world," I assured them, my voice thick with emotion. "And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to have you in their lives." When we got to Sarah's, she greeted us with open arms and a warm hug. She had already inflated an air mattress for the kids in her spare room next to the queen bed I would use. She'd even bought their favorite ice cream and had a movie ready to go. As the twins sat on her sofa, quietly eating their ice cream, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up to them, Sarah pulled me into the kitchen. "I am so proud of you," she said simply. "That took more courage than you know." "I just wish I'd done it sooner," I confessed, "before they hurt my kids this badly." "You're doing it now," she said firmly, "and that's what counts." Later that night, with Leo and Mia sleeping soundly beside me, I lay awake, a storm of emotions churning inside me, grief for the family I wished I had, fury at the injustice, and a deep, terrifying anxiety about the future. But beneath it all, there was a powerful, quiet hum of peace. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up for myself and for my children, and I hadn't backed down. Tomorrow would be hard. We had to face them again, retrieve our belongings, and weather the emotional storm that was sure to come. But tonight, watching my children breathe peacefully in a safe space, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I had made the only right decision. We were finally free. The next morning, I used a personal day at work. Sarah generously offered to watch the twins while I went back to my parents' house, but I gently declined. "They need to see this through with me," I explained. "It's important they know we're a team and we're doing this together." We pulled up to the house at 10 o'clock, a time I knew they would all be home. My father opened the door, his face a thundercloud that cleared slightly when he saw the kids. "Come to apologize for your little tantrum?" he asked me. "No," I replied, my voice perfectly even. "We've come for our things." His face hardened again. "Your mother was up all night, sick with worry over your dramatic exit." "I'm sorry she's upset," I said, and I truly was. I never wanted to inflict pain, only to escape it. "But we are still leaving." He stepped aside, and we walked into a house thick with tension. My mother sat in the living room, her eyes puffy. Mark and Jessica were conspicuously absent. "Where are they?" I asked. "They took Noah to the park," my mother mumbled. "They thought it would be less tense if they weren't here. A small mercy, at least." "Leo, Mia, go on up and start packing your room," I instructed them. "Remember what we talked about. Just our things. Just what you need and what you love." As they headed upstairs, my mother turned to me, her voice trembling. "I can't believe you are doing this to us." "I'm not doing anything to you," I corrected her gently. "I am doing something for my children." "We gave you everything," she cried. "A home when you had nowhere to turn, help with the children, support through your divorce." "And I was grateful for all of it," I acknowledged. "But that gratitude doesn't require me to let my children be treated as less than." "We never said that," she protested. "You didn't have to say it in words." "Your actions screamed it." My father started pacing. "This is about Mark, isn't it? You've always been jealous of your brother's success." I just shook my head, weary of the old, tired accusation. "This is about my children being moved into an unsafe room without my consent. This is about you telling them that another child deserved the best, which by definition means they deserved less." "You're twisting our words," my mother accused. "Am I?" you said, and I quote, "Our other grandson deserves the best rooms." What exactly could you have meant by that, if not that my children were undeserving? She had no answer. I went upstairs and helped the kids pack. We worked efficiently, filling the suitcases and boxes I had brought. Leo carefully wrapped his favorite books and the science kit he'd gotten for his last birthday. Mia methodically packed her sports trophies and the small jewelry box her father had given her. When we brought the first load downstairs, my father was blocking the doorway. "Where are you really going? This mysterious house you claim you rented?" "We're staying with a friend until our place is ready next week," I said, even though I owed him no explanation. "And how do you plan to afford that on your salary?" he asked, his tone heavy with skepticism. The condescension finally made something in me snap. I set down the heavy boxes and faced him. "Dad, I am a senior pediatric nurse. I make $65,000 a year. I have excellent credit, almost no debt, and I have been saving methodically for 2 years. I am perfectly capable of providing for my own family." He looked genuinely shocked. It dawned on me that he had never bothered to ask. He had just assumed I was a financial mess because it fit his narrative of me as the less capable child. "The rental market is impossible right now," my mother chimed in. "How did you even find a place?" "I looked, I made calls. I have friends," I said. "Just because I didn't broadcast my plans to you doesn't mean they didn't exist." It took several trips to load up my car. My parents watched in silence, the finality of our departure finally seeming to penetrate their disbelief. When the car was full, I did one last walkthrough. I found my mother in the kitchen, staring into a coffee cup. "We're leaving now," I said softly. She looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. "I just don't understand why you're doing this." "We're family." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "And that's why this is so painful. family is supposed to make you feel safe and valued. Leo and Mia haven't felt that way here for a very long time. That's not true, she whispered. Mom, yesterday you looked my children in the eye and told them they weren't worthy of a proper bedroom. How do you think that made them feel? She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. As we were about to leave, my father made one last stand. This is a mistake, Claire. You're letting your pride get in the way of what's best for your children. No, Dad, I said, turning to face him fully. For the first time in a very long time, I am putting my children's well-being ahead of everyone else's pride, including my own. Leo and Mia said quiet, stilted goodbyes. I could see the conflict in their eyes, the love for the people who had hurt them so deeply. As we drove away, Mia asked, "Will we ever see them again?" "Yes," I promised her, "but from now on, it will be on our terms." The next few days at Sarah's were a healing balm. The twins were visibly lighter, their laughter echoing in a way I hadn't heard in months. I took the day off when our new house was ready and met the landlord to get the keys. It was a small rental, but it was perfect. 3 cozy bedrooms, a small fenced-in backyard, and a sunny kitchen. Best of all, it was ours. That Friday, Sarah and a few other nurses from the hospital came over and helped us move in. What could have been a stressful day turned into a joyful celebration. By nightfall, the beds were made, the kitchen was functional, and we were eating pizza on the floor of our very own living room. After the twins were asleep in their own separate rooms, for the first time in years I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, and I finally let myself cry, not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief. My phone had been buzzing all day with texts from my parents, a desperate mix of angry accusations and tearful pleas. I sent one reply, "We are safe and settled. I will call when I'm ready." 2 days later, they showed up at our new house unannounced. "How did you find us?" I asked, reluctantly letting them in. "Your Aunt Carol told us," my father said. "She said we needed to fix this." They looked around our modest home, my mother's expression critical. "It's small," she commented. "It's perfect for us," I replied evenly. "We want you to come home, Claire," my father said bluntly. "This has gone on long enough." "This is our home now," I stated, my voice firm. "But the children need their grandparents," my mother insisted, "and their uncle and their cousin." "What they need," I countered, "is to be treated with unconditional love and respect. When you can guarantee that, you are welcome in their lives." "We have always loved them," she protested. "Love isn't just a feeling, Mom. It's an action. It's a choice. It's how you treat people when it's inconvenient." They stayed for an hour, cycling through their usual tactics. But eventually, something shifted. "We didn't realize how it looked from your side of things," my father conceded, a monumental admission for him. "We were just trying to help Mark and Jessica through a tough time." "I understand that," I said, "but you chose to help them at the direct expense of my children's emotional and physical safety. And that is a choice I can never ignore." When they left, we had a fragile truce. They would respect our space, and we would try a family dinner in 2 weeks, a small step. In the following weeks, our new life began to take shape. My charge nurse promotion came through, giving me a significant pay raise and a more stable schedule. I heard through Aunt Carol that things at my parents' house were not going well. Without my steadying presence and unpaid labor, Mark and Jessica were struggling to manage their own lives. My mother was exhausted from the demands of a baby and a large house. The Sunday dinner 2 weeks later was strained, but there was a palpable shift. Mark and Jessica were less smug, and my parents seemed to be making a genuine effort. Most importantly, my children were thriving. Leo's teacher called to tell me about his dramatic improvement in class. Mia aced her clarinet audition and made first chair. One evening, as I was tucking her into bed, she looked up at me and said, "I like our house, Mom. I feel like I can breathe here." And in that moment, I knew everything was going to be okay. We had built a home where my children could finally breathe, and that was worth more than anything. 6 months later, our lives were unrecognizable. Our little rental was a true sanctuary. My promotion had given us financial security I'd only dreamed of. Our relationship with my parents was slowly healing, built on new, healthier boundaries. My mother even started visiting on her own. "After you left," she admitted one afternoon, "it all fell apart. I was so overwhelmed. I started to see how much you did, how much we took you for granted." She told me Mark and Jessica were in couples counseling. Their perfect facade had crumbled without the support system they hadn't even realized I was providing. The biggest change was in the kids. Their light was back. They were happy, secure, and confident. One night, Emma asked me why her grandparents had treated them differently. "I think, honey," I explained, "that sometimes grown-ups get stuck in old stories." Their story was that Uncle Mark always needed more help, and they forgot to write a new one. "So we left so we could write our own story?" Leo asked. "Exactly," I said, "and I like our story much better." In April, a small house went up for sale on our street. On a whim, I called a mortgage broker. With my promotion and savings, I was approved. I put in an offer, and to my astonishment, it was accepted. The day I told the twins we were going to be homeowners, their joy was explosive. Even my father got involved, offering to review the inspection report with me. As he was leaving, he stopped and looked at me. "I'm proud of you, Claire," he said, his voice thick. "Buying a house on your own? That's a big deal. I know I haven't always been fair. I'd like to do better." It was the closest to an apology I would ever get, and it was enough. The day we got the keys to our very own house, I stood alone in the empty living room and cried. 2 years ago, I was a broken, divorced mother, completely dependent on the whims of my family. Now I was a homeowner, a successful professional, a mother who had fought for her children and won. The journey had been excruciating, but the betrayal that felt like an ending was actually our beginning. It was the start of self-respect, of independence, and of showing my children that family isn't about obligation. It's about choosing to value and protect one another. That night, as I tucked my children into their beds, in their rooms, in our house, I felt a profound and lasting peace. We had walked through the fire and found our way home. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your family? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Remember, sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is pack your bags and build the life you and your children truly deserve. Thank you for listening, and may you always find the strength to fight for what's right.